All right, we're in Hebrews chapter 10. We have a van load of folks just coming in, so stretch this out just a little bit. It's good to see some back that have been away, and others are back, but they're home ill. A lot of stuff going around, unfortunately, and hopefully they'll be on the mend and be back with us real soon. Others still out of town. I know the Caissons are out of town. I believe the Latinis are also out of town. Okay, Hebrews chapter 10. I'm going to go ahead and read this section that we read last week. I knew we wouldn't get through it all. And after I finish reading this, I'm going to ask you guys to remember what I asked you guys to remember last Sunday morning, because I wanted to pick up there where we had left off. But before we go ahead and get into our Bible study this morning, I'm going to ask Dave, if he would, to lead us in an opening word of prayer. Dave, would you go ahead and lead us, and we'll get started this morning.
Thank you, dear Heavenly Father, for this day that you've given to us, another day to serve Thee. And we come together upon the first day of the week to remember the love that Jesus had for us. He went upon that cruel cross and suffered the pain and suffering that He went through on our behalf. We never want to take for granted that great sacrifice that Christ made for us. And we come together as the Lord's family on the first day to remember that His death and through His death and resurrection gives us hope of having the everlasting eternal life with You someday. We pray that in our Bible study here this morning, we keep our hearts and minds open to the Word and glean from us some truths You'd have us to know that we can become better and stronger Christians. And pray that we will continue to love You with all our heart, with all our soul, with all our strength, with all our mind, and that we love one another as we love ourselves. And if we do these things, these are the two greatest commandments that Thou hast given us. We ask all these favors, and in Jesus' dear name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Okay, I'll get you guys to read this last section in just a few moments. But before we get to that last section, let's just go ahead and let me begin reading in verse 19 again. And I'll just cover this section. Okay, for those who are watching at home, the Latinis are not out of town. So, anyways, verse 19. Therefore, brethren, having boldness to enter the holiest by the blood of Jesus, a new and living way which He consecrated for us through the veil, that is, His flesh, and having a high priest over the house of God, let us draw near with a true heart and full assurance of faith, having our hearts sprinkled with an evil conscience, from an evil conscience, and our bodies washed with pure water. Let us hold fast the confession of our hope without wavering, for He who promised is faithful. Let us consider one another in order to stir up love and good works, not forsaking the assembling of ourselves together as the manner of some, but exhorting one another, and so much more as you see the day approaching. All right, we only got down to verse 24 last week, and does anybody remember the question that I said, well, let's just start there with the question that I left last week? Does anybody remember? Tim?
How we stimulate each other?
Yes, that's exactly right. So, and it says, it's one thing to say, let us consider one another and to stir up love and good works. Some versions use the word provoke. We know how that's used in a negative sense with siblings. You know how to push the buttons on our siblings and stir up anger and wrath. But let's just talk for a few minutes. It's great that we have a lesson tells us what to do. Well, let's get some specifics here. Somebody says, okay, I'll stir up love. Well, what are you going to do? So how do you do that? I mean, you're commanded to do it. We are, as God's people, are commanded to do it. So what are some things, some tangibles we can give ourselves to think about? What can we do to stir up, as he mentions right here in verse 24, love and good works? What's one way to do that? And if your minds are blank, then you possibly cannot be doing it. Right? You must be doing it. Warren.
Possibility
start by actually showing true respect for each other.
Okay.
That's the building block for other things to take place.
Okay, and I'll link that with what Dave mentioned in his prayer. I mean, if you're going to stir up love, tell me something. Can you stir up loving being an unloving person? So obviously you should be loving. Now that characteristic, that quality should come across in you that you are a caring person. And that's what makes it genuine. It's going to be very hard to stir up that love if a person knows you really don't like them. Right? I mean, it's kind of like, what is it? What do you want? What's your ulterior motive here? And so if we're going to hold fast the confession of our faith, as he mentioned in verse 23, these are things that we want to do. We want to encourage other people to do the very same thing. And so you stir it up by Nancy doing what?
Well, a lot of times it is accepting help when you need it. Accepting it from your brothers and sisters to help you through hard times if you need that. And because if you can't accept it, then how can you give it?
Okay. I never thought about doing the flip side of it. That's fine. I mean, when we talk about the idea of, stirring one another up to love and good works, you got to be willing to be stirred up. Want that. I understand that. But again, I want to go back to the other side because we don't want it to be, I would have been encouraging to them. I would have, been loving towards them if they were loving towards me. Like put that clause in there, I'll do it only if. No. We are going to do this no matter what. We will do the best we can to stir up. Trey?
Well, if you tie it with 25, we stir up love just by showing up and being at services. It's so edifying to come in and see all your brothers and sisters at services.
But how do you perceive them? I mean, could I possibly come in and discourage you?
Oh, yeah.
How?
Not acknowledge me at all.
There you go. Okay. My example, and that's huge, but when you think about a kind of an example that we are to set, I mean, it needs to be a good example. If I'm going to stir you up to love, it needs to be a good example. That you talk about just coming here. Yeah, but I'm going to tell you, if I come in here and I've got a chip on my shoulder all the time and I don't really want to be, hey, let me put it in a question form. Could you really tell when somebody really doesn't want to be here? Now, you might not always know that, but is it possible that you can know when somebody doesn't really want to be here? And you know that because we've seen that. We've been around places or people, just in general things, in secular, with family. Let's go to this restaurant. You just tell when they just didn't really want to be there at a party. They just don't want to be there. And I think it's very important, as Trey mentions, we can really stir that up. The zeal that we show in our enthusiasm in worship, obviously, because even in our singing, how we teach it, admonish one another, we affect one another. And so that's huge. Can you think of others? How we can stir up love? I mean, if I know how to make you mad, how can I make you be glad? Little rhyme there this morning, Tim.
Well, maybe just a great example by volunteering for something you've never done before. Like this morning, Brian's sick. Trent volunteered to lead singing before. He's led singing on our singing night, but he never led singing in the assembly. So for him to do that, to me, that stirs up love on my part to say, I should volunteer for anything, right? I should never, ever, and all of us, shirk back from doing what we know we can do.
I like it because
it's not what somebody else is doing. Why doesn't somebody else do it? It's like, why am I not volunteering this time to do this?
I like it. We're doing a lot of sub-points that relate to this idea because, again, his example is encouraging you. You just put a lot of pressure on him, and Tim's going, thanks a lot. But, I mean, that's exactly right. People are noticing these things, just not coming in here, but how you are using your talents, and that's what God wants. And that, again, they talk about how that zeal is contagious. And people who are nice, that can be contagious. People who are loving, it can be contagious. Or you're kind of, I want to be like that. Have you ever met people like that? Or just, I have in my life. I just said, man, what a nice guy. And when you say what a nice guy, are you going, what a nice guy? No, you're going, what a nice guy. It's kind of like, I want to be like that. Okay? And so again, we're coming back to this concept of an example, but can you give a few more specifics? Like Tim was talking about how that you can stir up love. Think about it, guys. What can you do? It's kind of like when somebody says, I'm going to make that person like me whether they like it or not. What are you going to do to make that person like you? What are you going to do to stir up love with your brothers and sisters? Tessa.
Well, praying with people. If you know they're hurting, you just sit and just pray with them. They know that you're there for them and you love them.
That's huge. You know, you go up to somebody and you say, you know, I'm praying for you. I've seen the outpouring of both sides, but you know, Brother Dick Blackford, where I held a meeting, his son passed away. It's unexpected. And married with kids. And he talks about there, which a lot of people will do in those circumstances, is that they're acknowledging the outpouring of love and the people saying, you're in our prayers. And that means a lot to people, as Tessa's talking about. You go up to somebody and you send them a text, hey, I'm praying for you. Does that help? Does that encourage you? Well, think about that. Well, then that would encourage somebody else. So we've been doing a lot about this in our studies about, let's not just take. Let's learn to give. And so let's do this loving thing, provoking. If I'm just always trying to provoke you to love, don't I need that? Don't you need to provoke me or stir me up? Well, no. Your job is just to stir, you know. Our job is to be stirred. And so let's be mindful of that. I don't want to spend all morning on this, just repeating. But is anybody else? Did I see another hand? Dave.
Remember, special occasions. If a brother or sister might be sick, we can send them a card, we can call them. If they're in the hospital, we can go visit them if they're allowed to have visitors. Send them a birthday card. Things that we remember our brothers and sisters and love.
That's exactly right. What I would really want to do now is, go ahead, EJ.
I just have a dumb question. Doesn't that fall under here where it says, do unto others as you would have them do unto you?
Well, that is the premise of all this.
Don't do it.
Yes, in other words, if you want to stir some people up, if you're trying to think right now, what can I do to stir up love? Just ask yourself, what would I like somebody to do to me?
Make me laugh.
Right?
Because if people got sense of humor, they can see it. Because and then I get off the subject, where I used to work at the women's shelter, they would see me come in every morning and I have a smile on my face. They didn't know why. But then they have problems. All these women have problems. So they would come and just sit down and ask me a question, ask me what can they do. Don't ask me for my opinion because I'm not allowed to give it. But my bosses said, go on and talk to them. So I brought them up from feeling down there to up there.
Well, you just described the idea of...
But I also had it in the Bible. I showed it to them in the Bible, too.
Provide somebody a listening ear. Be a listener. You want to provoke love, you got to show interest. Can you tell when somebody's not paying attention to when you're talking to them? They're tuned out. That there really isn't genuine interest there? Absolutely. And I think that goes a long way, to what we have to do. But guys, as Terry was mentioning a while ago, in this whole context, there's a lot that's being referenced to verse 25. Because he says, there's a comma there. He said, let us consider one another in order to stir up love and good works, not forsaking the assembling of ourselves together, as is the manner of some, but exhorting one another, and so much more as you see the day approaching. Now, I asked you last week, what could that day possibly be? We didn't spend a lot of time on it, but the answer, just looking for my eraser. What day do you think he's talking about here?
One could be the end of time.
Well,
One could be the Lord's Day.
could it be the end of time? Do you see the Lord's day approaching? Do you see the end of time approaching?
Well, you don't see, no, but you know it's coming.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and you see it with the eye of faith, and that's an argument that could be made for that. Nancy?
Well, this was written before the destruction of Jerusalem, so it could even be with that.
There's something that's going to be in our next section that really seems to point to the idea, because there was a lot of talk about the destruction of Jerusalem that was coming, okay? And obviously the other, as you see, what? As you see the first day of the week coming. You can encourage somebody so much more as you see that day approaching. Well, the only problem with that concept is that they don't have texting, they don't have phones, they don't have email, you know, they don't have a lot of that, they don't have cars, you know, and so you're spread out, so how are you going to encourage so much more as you see the day, you know, the first day of the week coming? Hey, it's Friday, 2 more days, I get to see you. Tomorrow's Sunday, can't wait to see you. Well, okay, we can do that, and we can encourage people so much more as you see the first day of the week coming. But a lot of the, you know, but don't misunderstand me. What is the assembly that he's talking about? That is the first day of the week. You know, don't forsake the assembling of yourselves together is the manner of some. You know, that you are coming together, you know, but then he separates that assembly from as you see that day approaching. Now, could that day be the day of assembling, or is it this day of destruction, or the eye of faith talking about destruction of Jerusalem, or judgment day, or particularly that day? Well, it really doesn't matter, because what's the thought? It doesn't matter, because what's the point?
The point is to stir each other up.
Yeah, we need to stir one another up, as he mentions here in verse 24, and specifically mentioning, and I want to know why, because it's there, not forsaking the assembling of yourselves together as the manner of some. Okay. Why is assembling with the saints so important? During your week, how much time is actually spent in the assembly? How much time? So we got what? Yeah. For the whole week, right? 1, 2, 3, 4 hours. You get here a little bit earlier, stay a little bit after, but we'll just put that 4 hours, right? Okay? That's all you need, right? You just need 4 hours of assembling to make you faithful to the Lord. Is that what he's talking about here? You just need 4 hours? I mean, think about the rest of the week. How much time and what you do at home, what you do at work. This is a very small amount, is it not? Time-wise, is it small? I just want us to, because sometimes people, when I visited with brethren, and they'll tell me, they'll say, I'll say, you know, we missed you at services, you know, and you know, you need to be worshiping God, and they'll say, well, I haven't forgot about the Lord. I'm still doing all these things. I'm faithful to the Lord when I'm not there. Okay, well, you need to be faithful out here. There's no question. Dave?
Well, in the assembling of ourselves together, well, the first day of the week is a very special time. That's the time when all the Lord's family is together.
We're going to get to the specifics on that day in just a few moments. But I'm wanting us to see that what we're not saying, because you can be accused, and actually you can condition brethren to think, if I put in my hour a week, I'm done. I have punched my clock. God is pleased with me. I'm faithful. I'm going to heaven because I never miss that hour a week. And I'm going to tell you something. If that's your mindset, you have missed it. You have missed it completely. Nancy?
It should encourage you to really read more and study more.
Well, we're going to get there in just a few moments, but I'm wanting to look at the context, okay? He's telling us, look, I know you have to, I mean, so much of the Bible is all this admonition in the New Testament teaching us how to behave at church. How much in the New Testament is teaching us how to behave at church services? Very small amount, right? What's the rest of it about? How you behave outside these 4 walls. So we've got so much that we have to be growing and doing at beyond these 4 walls, right? That's why I'm not preaching every Sunday about what we do in worship. Okay, I'm not preaching that every week. So we know most of that. So we don't want to convey the idea of going to Hebrews 10:25 all the time. You know, not forsaken. Well, I've never forsaken the assembly. You're missing the point here. Now, there is a huge point that I want to focus on in just a few moments. I want to get there. Because there's a reason why, as Dave was mentioning, why the Lord emphasized the need for brethren to come together to worship, to study, to feed on His Word, to pray, to sing. There is a reason for that. Like I asked last week, is it possible? Could God have said, hey, worship me at home? Don't come together. Could He have done that? Could have done anything He wanted. He could have chose to say, look, just stay at home with your family and worship me. If you're by yourself, just stay there and worship me. That's all that matters. That's all. That's what's more important to me, that you're worshiping. I don't care too much about coming together. Oh, by the way, is that true? That He doesn't care about coming together? No, not at all. As a matter of fact, He is concerned about brethren coming together. Now, He said, I don't want you forsaking it. What we have to come up with is reasons why. Why should I not forsake the assembly? And give me the absolute obvious number one answer. Don't forsake the assembly because God said so. Okay? Now, people can, you do it as parents, right? Well, why do I got to do that? What? Because I said so. Why is that? What is this conveying? Authority. It's all about authority, guys. When we start doing this, why do I have to? When a child is sitting there going, but why do I have to? What are they doing? What are they doing?
Question your authority.
Question your authority. Right? I don't want to do that. I know you don't want to. But I want you to do that. But even God doesn't tell us, God is not telling us, do it even if you don't like it, is He? What does God say? You do it and you like it. Because if you don't like it, what you're doing is not going to be profitable, right? You need to worship God in spirit and in truth. Now, as parents, we don't care. We're like, clean your room? I don't care if you cry the whole time. Just clean your room. We don't care, right? Right? So the whole point. But now, would you prefer it if the child turned and said, well, I'll be glad to clean my room, Mom. Thanks. We'd probably fall over and have a heart attack. But that would be wonderful, right? Look, God says, don't forsake the assembly. Now, which is telling me, don't come and hate it. Right? Well, I'm here. Hurry up. Come on, Chuck. You got 40 minutes. Come on. I'm watching. That time's done. I'm out of here. Because I'm punching my clock. I'm not interested in this long list of benefits of every time the church comes together. What are all these benefits that we get every time we come? I'm not interested in all these benefits. I just want to punch my clock and I want to get out of here. Because I want to go to heaven. And I just want to punch my clock. And if that's your philosophy, you're not going to make it. You can stand before God and say, well, I never forsook the assembly. Like some of those people are missing. Well, yeah, but you missed it. You missed the benefits. Because when people can't, the faithful, you tell me, I'll pick on Brian and Denise. They're homesick. They can't make it today. Faithful people, what's their attitude when they're at home? Wish I was there. It isn't, boy, I'm glad I got this tickle in my throat. I don't have, people, have you ever heard of excuses, people that make up? Somebody ought to write a book on this, of different excuses they've heard over the years. I had a hangnail. It was really bothering me. Steve.
Well, even the rich young ruler said, Lord, I've done this, I've done this, I've done this,
Perfect.
I've done this. And Jesus says, you still lie.
That's it. That's it. When you start doing that, and it's the idea we're trying to tell people, we're not earning our salvation. While you're not going to heaven because you're here today, guys. Do you know that? You're going to heaven if your sins are forgiven. That's all. You say, well, then I don't have to be here. No, now you're sinning. You see, you got to understand that you're not here. Just because you're here doesn't mean you're earning salvation. I saw a hand. Tony.
The way I look at it is the ones that do the forsaking, they feel like they only have to answer to us. and what they're missing in the picture, like you're saying is, it's not us you're gonna have to answer to, it's God.
That's right. And what you want to do is you want to make a list, and this goes for all of us, right? Because we want to make strong, because he mentions, let's not waver, let's stay strong. So we need a long list here. And we're going to come up with a long list of the benefits of understanding God's wisdom. And God gives us a lot of insight in the Scriptures. 1 Corinthians chapter 14 gives us some insight on this. Acts chapter 20, and there's a lot of passages that the Bible, I said, you know, how much tells us how to behave in services? Well, I didn't mean to imply that there's nothing said in the Bible about how to behave in services. There's actually a lot. In 1 Corinthians chapter 14, he said, hey, listen, be mindful of the unbeliever that comes into your midst. If you don't behave yourselves, they're going to think you're crazy here. And so you need to be mindful of it. So he does give instruction about how to behave during assemblies, okay? And the responsibilities that are there. And so I'm not asking you to dream up things. The Bible gives us a lot of insight of the benefits of assembling with the saints. If you do not see the benefits of meeting with the saints, what's going to happen? You're not going to meet. Or you will meet and not enjoy it. That's why you can have somebody just really enjoy a Bible class and the person sitting beside them saying, man, I was bored out of my wits. What a waste of time. Because somebody was putting their efforts into it, and somebody says, I didn't really want to be there, and I'm looking for negative things. Look at that, he spelt a word wrong again. That happens a lot. I'm setting you guys up. Don't make a big deal out of that, right? Okay, so that's it. And so now, obviously, why do we assemble? What are the benefits? You can say, well, God said so, number one. And if you have to think for a moment about, you know, why a child should clean the room, well, because Mom said so. But let's look at some benefits of worship. One, Dave.
Love. Love of God, love of Jesus, love of the brethren.
Okay. Why should I go to services? Because I love God and my brethren. Obviously, if your enemy invites you to a party, you're like, what? I'm not going. No, I mean, somebody that has hurt you and you don't, you know, you think of people in the world. But I tell you, when people you love, you know, and they invite you over, you think of brethren, right? And they invite you over, well, sure. Tim?
So in order to stimulate, right? So we're considering how to stimulate. So when I show up and I'm ready to stimulate you, you should be there, right?
I like it. I like it.
And I should show up in order to be stimulated by somebody who's been considering how they should stimulate.
Oh, man, I love this. I love this. That's why I wanted to spend time on this, guys. This isn't fill. This is tangibles that you can use, that I can use. You know, the benefits of coming together, God said so. One, two, is that I can show that I love my brother, that I love my God. I want to worship Him. I want to study His Word. To help my brothers and sisters, and to help myself. They say one of the worst things you can do when you're lonely is to cut yourself off from other people. You know, that's not a solution, okay? And isolation, and that's what the devil wants you to do. The devil wants us to separate ourselves, and one of the ways that we drift away, well, that's what the expression is, right? You're drifting. In other words, you've moved away from the mark. And so if this is the standard right here of coming together with my brethren, people say, you know, why are you coming to see me because I'm missing services? There are people that are doing all kinds of things in this world that are wrong. Brethren that are, maybe they're doing other things. Well, that's possibly true that brethren are doing things that are wrong. But this is something that I can see. You can see when he mentions here, some have forsaken. So I'm going to tell you something. You can't hide that one. When somebody's forsaken the assembly, you see it. And so what we need to be mindful of is, look, why would I want to? What? So, well, I don't feel as strong. Well, the solution of increasing your faith is not to stay away. I'm just going to tell you right now, that's not a solution. And you need to focus on helping others. And when you help others, you are helping yourself. Remember, you teach and admonish one another in psalms and hymns and spiritual songs. So you're sitting there saying, well, I'm teaching others, but you're being taught too. You're being encouraged. And so let's continue on with the benefits of not forsaking the assembling of ourselves. Why? Think of anything else?
Growth.
Okay. Do we learn much from Bible studies? I'm going to tell you guys, and I've told you this time and time again, I know. And it's tongue in cheek. I always say, if you're going to pick between Bible study or worship, pick Bible study. But I don't say to do that. I'm jokingly, just emphasize, there is so much we get out of Bible study because you participate. When I'm preaching a sermon, it's one-sided. Get into a Bible study, you've got a comment, they got a question, what did you mean by that, da-da-da, you know, you're really getting into it and everybody's participating. That's wonderful. Obviously, it's all necessary. Worship is great, but I'm going to tell you, Bible study really helps. Now, the growth comes from worship. And there's no question, as Tony mentions here. When we're coming together, are we going to get anything out of our worship? Well, I hope so, especially if we gather around the table. You talk about getting stronger. How are you going to get stronger to the Lord when you're forsaking the assembly and you're not remembering the Lord's death? You know, in that memorial, people talk about, well, you know, you're worried about giving. No, I'm not worried about the giving. Remember, somebody mentioned earlier, it's not about me, it's about your obligation to God. If you forsake the assembly, it shouldn't cause me to not want to worship God, which is a very important point, by the way, because that can affect our worship, can it? I could allow somebody else's unfaithfulness to cause me to be unfaithful. And that's just not right. We need to look at this and say, it's like being at a party. It's not a party. It's a bad analogy. But it's like me being at a party and a lot of people didn't come. And I'm saying, they're lost. Or a potluck. And look at all this food. Well, a lot of people couldn't come. Well, great, more for me. You know, so in other words, there's nothing negative that I didn't come, right? I don't see a negative for me not being there. And so when I think about this, when we make this list, we're saying, well, so-and-so didn't get to come or didn't come or chose not to come. Well, I'm not going to let it ruin my worship because I'm glad to be here. And that's the way it ought to be. Nancy?
Well, even with sermons, they can also stir up questions to be able to maybe
oh, yes.
get to another.
I would hope so. I hope people are learning something from sermons, you know, and provoke thinking and covering a lot of different subjects that we will do. Absolutely, you're right about that. Guys, can you think of anything else that a benefit of gathering together for worship? And this is huge. I'm going to put this one up here. You see, I want a lot of people to go to heaven. I want to remain faithful. But for the next generation, you know, I want my children to go to heaven. I want to instill good habits. I want them to see, you know, but what are the odds of my offspring wanting to if they see me not enjoying it, if they see me complaining about it, and if they see me hit and miss? What happens from one generation to the next?
Less and less faithful.
Less and less. If you lower a standard, it's like dress. It's like one generation. If you don't toe the line, if you're loose on dress, what happens to the next generation? They're more loose. And then the next generation, they're more. And people talk about, Chuck, you know, I remember our kids telling me, they told elders in our house when they were growing up, we were visiting, and they said, our dad and mom, they demanded perfection out of us. Yes. What have we done? They demanded us to be less than perfect. They wanted us to come up short. No, you put the bar high, guys, because if you don't put the bar high and you bring it low, the next generation, it's lower. Samantha.
Well, it makes me think of my great-grandmother. She was a Christian, and, you know, her daughter's a Christian, and her granddaughter, and then I'm a great-granddaughter. But then I think about all the rest of the family, you know, and it's just crazy because it's like that's something I pray for. I pray for my kids and my grandkids, and I think she's probably up in heaven, you know, happy that she's got some faithful family members. But it's scary because there's you know,
So
you got
many
a
that
big,
aren't.
yeah, you got a big family and.
It's true, Samantha. I just think that if we, I'm not gonna say, if you're gonna forget all of these, remember this one. Obviously, I'm not gonna say forget God and everybody else in here. But this is all serious stuff. And being there and providing that example and helping them along and wanting them to grow, they need to see that. And an inconsistency there will do more harm than good. I'm just going to tell you that, Steve.
I would probably take this and draw a circle around everything. There's a hidden benefit for those outside of Christ. And they visit, they should see God, and they should see how things should be done. They don't see that on the outside.
They don't. They don't. And let's just. Okay, I'm just going to put, Steve, I'm just going to put the lost up there. I'm going to put the lost up there because we have visitors come, right? A lot. We often have non-Christians a lot visit. And I'm going to tell you something. What do visitors do when they come? Tell me right now, what do visitors do when they come here? They're watching. Don't think for a moment they're not watching. Okay? And especially, I can't say that I've witnessed this because my eyes are closed when we're praying. But if the visitor's not, and he's looking around, and he sees me during the prayer, clipping my nails, because I know everybody else has got their head, but they're seeing that, or I'm filing, right, during the... I'm just trying to make a point, not to be funny. I'm just saying they're noticing whether you're really interested. And I'm going to tell you something. I know there are times when I've had a brother up north who was a carpenter and he worked outside all day. Hey, how do you feel when you're outside working in the cold all day and you come into a nice warm building?
Go sleep.
Oh man, you're fighting it, right? You're fighting. You're tired, you know. But I'm just going to tell you something. Brother, visitors, the lost are going to notice this. They're just going to notice this. They're going to notice in a heartbeat. I'm just telling you. They'll notice it. We had it. I told you. True story? No. We sang a song. We sang a song. Guy gets up to the table, makes a few comments, asks a guy to lead a prayer for the bread, and he sleeps. Sleep. In that amount of time, song, sat down, boom. It's like, people are going to notice. You know, people are going to notice. Now, did he have a sleeping disorder? Well, I'm going to find out, play video games till 3 o'clock in the morning. What do you think is going to happen? What do you think is going to happen? So, my point is, we have to be mindful. And that brother, by the way, you know what he would do? That worked with him? He'd be at the back. He'd be at the back. Rarely does somebody just fall asleep and fall. You know, so he would stay awake, try to keep himself awake. He would stand up, which is fine. You know, if everybody's standing up, I just hope it doesn't mean you're bolting for the door. Number 7. What's another thing, guys? A benefit of not forsaking the assembly is Egypt.
I would put outside, I would say learning, because if what you're learning in here, you can talk to somebody else when you hear them saying something wrong, like Paul, what was it, equivalent of, however you pronounce that.
Equivalent for self?
Yeah, took him aside.
That's right. And so that's, you know, you talk about the benefits, and this one we could spend a lot of time on, because the idea of what you learn here, you can teach it to others. And we can learn how to live. And so our godly lives outside this building. There's just so many things that we can gain. We got both Latini hands up here. Let's go ladies first.
I was going to say habit.
Excuse me?
Like your habit. You don't forsake it because you've never forsaken it. But the moment you start missing, then it becomes missing. It's just like New Year's Eve start, everyone's like, oh, I'm going to go to the gym. And so everyone goes to the gym for the first week, and then you're like, oh, I'm tired, I'm going to the gym.
Yeah.
So you go because you've always gone.
Yeah.
You know, you don't not go because then you don't go.
And habits are not bad. Routines are not bad. Don't misunderstand. Where are you guys going to be 3 weeks from today, Sunday morning? Where are you going to be? If there's time. You're going to be here or some other place worshiping God. I mean, you just know it, right? Somebody could ask you, where are you going to be 6 months from now on a Sunday morning? Unless I'm sick, I'm going to be worshiping God somewhere. I mean, we just know that. Dan, what were you going to say?
It's worth considering the alternative to this as well. We see there's a long list of benefits from being here, right? We can say in general, this is time well spent.
Okay.
On the flip side, what's our opportunity during this time that would be better spent?
Oh.
Right? What would be more important to do these things, or is there a better opportunity to do these things?
Amen.
There's not.
True story. Brother decided he wasn't coming. He told the brethren in a congregation far from here. He told the brethren that he wasn't coming Wednesday night to Bible study anymore because he's going to go. He joined the local fire department, and they meet on Wednesdays to volunteer, and he feels like he can get out there and reach them, and teach them the gospel. Come to talk to him afterwards. Have you talked to anybody? Nope. You can try to justify anything that you want. I can use my time more wisely over here. Kudos to people. I've even said this publicly. I've said, when a person, do I have to come Sunday night? Do I have to come Wednesday or on Sunday morning Bible study? I said, look, if you can get stronger for the Lord by missing those, do it. But if you know how, tell me the secret, because I don't know it. I mean, if you can get stronger by assembling less with the brethren, I mean, your faith is increasing and you're on fire for the Lord and you're growing and you're helping your brothers and sisters and your family is strong and they're faithful to the Lord and your love for God is increasing. If you're getting stronger by not doing that, tell me your secret, because I'd like to know. Now, as Dan was mentioning here, not forsaking the assembling. What's wrong with that? Just do the flip side on all these, right? That's what we're talking about here. And so I'm going to finish this section. 2 verses today. But we'll hopefully finish out the chapter next week. I don't know what I'm doing in Acts over here. Anyway, let me get back over to Hebrews. Hebrews chapter 10. Guys, by the way, good stuff. Appreciate your participation in that, because obviously there's one of the great joys of being a teacher is having people who want to be there. Nothing is more discouraging than when people don't want to be there. And there's evidence when people don't want to be there. And it's so encouraging. So again, not forsaking the assembling of ourselves together, as is the manner of some. Now, let's get down to the heart of the matter here with 3 minutes left. Why do you think some of the people here were forsaken? Think of the time period. Steve, what do you think? Persecution. That's huge. People can be persecuted in different ways today, right? I mean, come on with us, man. That's ridiculous. Go next week. Nancy?
The Jews, peer pressure.
Yeah, exactly. And again, pressure different ways, the persecution that comes upon them. And I'm going to get back to Mallory's point. I'm going to tell you something. It's like anything. The alcoholic, the guys that hooks on drugs, when was their worst one when they would tell you? The first one. So, when was the beginning of the end for somebody who has fallen away? First time. The first time you skip services, how do you feel? I'm not saying you know this, okay. But how would a person feel the first time they just said, I'm just not going to go today? Not bad about it, right? Next time? A little less. Next time? It gets to the point of what? I don't care. You'll see him at Walmart after services. Hey, I thought you were homesick. No. Doesn't care. Frank?
Well, coming from someone who left the Lord for years, every Sunday I always knew where I was supposed to be. It never left me.
That's it. When you have that connection, and see, guys, we're not talking about just going through things like the old law. We've been going through that old law business, going through the book of Hebrews. It isn't just going through stuff. we're doing things as Christians that makes us have a relationship with the Lord. We love Him. He loves us. We have fellowship with one another, 1 John 1. We talk about the benefits of worship. You know, I get to approach God. I get to sing to Him. I get to remember Him. I get to give for His work. It's a privilege to do all these things. And like Trey's talking about, try to take that away from somebody. I tell you, for the faithful, if somebody says, oh, I found a verse, you got to pay $50 every time you worship God. Fine, here it is. We'll do it. We will do whatever it takes. He didn't ask us to do that, but the point is, we're going to put God first. And guys, appreciate your comments, and let's implement these things and value them as Christians.